The Nestorian Stele is a Tang Chinese stele erected in 781 that documents 150 years of early Christianity in China. It is a 279 centimeters tall limestone block with text in both Chinese and Syriac describing the existence of Christian communities in several cities in northern China. It reveals that the initial Nestorian Christian church had met recognition by the Tang Emperor Taizong, due to efforts of the Christian missionary Alopen in 635. According to the Stell, Alopen and his fellow Syriac missionaries came to China from Daqin in the 9th year of Emperor Taizong, bringing sacred books in images. Buried in 845, probably during religious suppression, the Stell was not rediscovered until 1625. Content. The heading on the stone, Chinese for memorial of the propagation in China of the luminous religion from Daqin, and even more abbreviated version of the title, in its Wade-Giles form, Qingqiaopei, was used by some Western writers to refer to the stele as well. The name of the stele can also be translated as a monument commemorating the propagation of the Daqin luminous religion in the Middle Kingdom. The stele was erected on January 7, 781, at the imperial capital city of Chang'an, or at nearby Chuqi. The calligraphy was by Lu Zhuyin, and the content was composed by the Nestorian monk Jingjing in the 4 and 6 character euphemistic style. A gloss in Syriac identifies Jingjing with Adam, priest, Episcopus and Papash of Sinistan. Although the term Papash is unusual and the normal Syriac name for China is Beth Sinai, not Sinistan, there is no reason to doubt that Adam was the metropolitan of the Nestorian ecclesiastical province of Beth Sinai, created a half-century earlier during the reign of Patriarch Zkha. A Syriac dating formula refers to the Nestorian Patriarch Nunashotu, news of whose death several months earlier had evidently not yet reached the Nestorians of Chang'an. In fact, the reigning Nestorian Patriarch in January 781 was Timothy I, who had been consecrated in Baghdad on the 7th of May 780. The names of several higher clergy and around 70 monks or priests are listed. The names of the higher clergy appear on the front of the stone, while those of the priests and monks are inscribed in rows along the narrow sides of the stone, in both Syriac and Chinese. In some cases, the Chinese names are phonetically close to the Syriac originals, but in many other cases, they bear little resemblance to them. Some of the Nestorian monks had distinctive Persian names, suggesting that they might have come from Fars or elsewhere in Persia, but most of them had common Christian names of the kind of compound Syriac name much in vogue among all Nestorian Christians. In such cases, it is impossible to guess at the place of origin. On top of the tablet, there is a cross. Below this headpiece is a long Chinese inscription, consisting of around 1,900 Chinese characters, sometimes glossed in Syriac, calling God Veritable Majesty. The text refers to Genesis, the cross, and baptism. It also pays tribute to missionaries and benefactors of the Church, who were known to have arrived in China by 640. The text contains the name of an early missionary, Alopen. The tablet describes the illustrious religion, and emphasizes the Trinity and the Incarnation, but there is nothing about Christ's crucifixion or resurrection. Other Chinese elements referred to include a wooden bell, beard, tonsure, and renunciation. The Syriac proper names for God, Christ, and Satan were rendered phonetically into Chinese. Chinese transliterations were also made of one or two words of Sanskrit origin such as Sphatika and Asa. There is also a Persian word denoting Sunday. Discovery of the Stele. The Stele is thought to have been buried in 845 during a campaign of anti-Buddhist persecution, which also affected the Nestorians. The Stele was unearthed in the late Ming dynasty beside Chongrun Temple in Longquan. According to the account by the Jesuit Alvaro Semedo, the workers who found the Stele immediately reported the find to the governor, who soon visited the monument and had it installed on a pedestal under a protective roof, requesting the nearby Buddhist monastery to care for it. The newly discovered Stele attracted attention of local intellectuals. It was Zhang Gengyu who first identified the text as Christian in content. Zhang, who had been aware of Christianity through Matteo Ricci, and who himself may have been Christian, sent a copy of the Stele's Chinese text to his Christian friend, Leon Lizhizao in Hangzhou, who in his turn published the text and told the locally based Jesuits about it. Alvaro Semedo was the first European to visit the Stele. Nicholas Trigault's Latin translation of the monument's inscription soon made its way in Europe, and was apparently first published in a French translation in 1628. Portuguese and Italian translations, and a Latin retranslation, were soon published as well. Semedo's account of the monument's discovery was published in 1641 in his Imperio de la China. Early Jesuits attempted to claim that the Stele was erected by a historical community of Roman Catholics in China and called Nestorianism a heresy, and claimed that it was Catholics who first brought Christianity to China. But later historians and writers admitted that it was indeed Nestorian, not Catholic. The first publication of the original Chinese and Syriac text of the inscription in Europe is attributed to Athanasius Kircher. China Illustrata, edited by Kircher, included a reproduction of the original inscription in Chinese characters, romanization of the text, and a Latin translation. This was perhaps the first sizable Chinese text made available in its original form to the European public. A sophisticated romanization system, reflecting Chinese tones, used to transcribe the text, was the one developed earlier by Matteo Ricci's collaborator Lazzaro Cattaneo. The work of the transcription and translation was carried out by Michel Boim and two young Chinese Christians who visited Rome in the 1650s and 1660s. Boim's traveling companion Andreas Cheng, and, later, another person who signed in Latin as Matthias Sina. D. E. Mungello suggests that Matthias Sina may have been the person who traveled from China to Europe overland with Johann Gruber. Debate about the Stele. The Nestorian stone attracted the attention of some anti-Christian, Christian anti-Catholic, or Catholic anti-Jesuit groups in the 17th century, who argued that the stone was a fake or that the inscriptions had been modified by the Jesuits who served in the Ming court. The three most prominent early skeptics were the German-Dutch Presbyterian scholar Georg Horn, the German historian Gottlieb Spitzel, and the Dominican missionary Domingo Navarrete. Later, Navarrete's point of view was picked by French Jansenists and Voltaire. By the 19th century, the debate had become less sectarian and more scholarly. Notable skeptics included Carl Friedrich Neumann, Stanislaus Julian Edward E. Salisbury and Charles Wall. Ernest Renan initially had grave doubts, but eventually changed his mind in the light of later scholarship in favor of the Stele's genuineness. The defenders included some non-Jesuit scholars, such as Alexander Wiley, James Legge, and Jean-Pierre Guillaume Porthier. Although the most substantive work in defense of the Stele's authenticity, the three-volume Le Stele chrétien de Saint Fu, was authored by the Jesuit scholar Henri Havret. Paul Pelliot did an extensive amount of research on the Stele, which, however, was only published posthumously in 1996. His and Havret's works are still regarded as the two standard books on the subject. In the assessment of modern scholars, there is no scientific or historical evidence to support the claims of the non-authenticity of the Stele. Both of Havret's main arguments, the absence of references in Chinese records to the events described on the Stele, and the supposed widespread skepticism in 17th-century China about the authenticity of the monument, appear to be mistaken. Other early Christian monuments in China. Numerous Christian gravestones have also been found in China in the Xinjiang region, Guangzhou and elsewhere from a somewhat later period. There are also two much later stelae presenting a curious mix of Christian and Buddhist aspects, which are preserved at the site of the former Monastery of the Cross in the Fangshan district, near Beijing. Modern location and replicas. Since the late 19th century, a number of European scholars opined in favor of somehow getting the Stele out of China and into the British Museum or some other suitable location. The plans, however, were frustrated when the Danish scholar and adventurer Fritz Holm came to Xin in 1907 with the plans to take the monument to Europe. The local authorities intervened and moved the Stele, complete with its tortoise, from its location near Shongrun Temple to Xion's Beilan Museum. The disappointed Holm had to be satisfied with having an exact copy of the Stele made for him. Instead of London's British Museum, he had the replica Stele shipped to New York, planning to sell it to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The museum's director, Caspar Purden Clark, however, was less than enthusiastic about purchasing so large a stone of no artistic value. Nonetheless, the replica Stele was exhibited in the museum for about 10 years. Eventually, in 1917, some Mr. George Leary, a wealthy New Yorker, purchased the replica Stele and sent it to Rome as a gift to the Pope. A full-sized replica cast from the replica is on permanent display in the Bonn Intercultural Center on the campus of Georgetown University. The original Nestorian Stele remains in the Forest of Steles. It is now exhibited in the museum's room number 2, and is the first Stele on the left after the entry. When the official list of Chinese cultural relics forbidden to be exhibited abroad was promulgated in 2003, the Stele was included into this short list of particularly valuable and important items. A copy of the Stele and its tortoise have been installed near Xian Daqin Pagoda as well. Another copy of the Stele exists in Japan, installed on Mount Goya.